We've talked about how do we tell a good story? What are the ingredients? How do we make a complete meal? You mentioned it earlier. You'd mentioned it 2 or 3 times, and I wanted to save it to the very, very end, where it belongs.
Sorry.
No problem at all. Good foreshadowing.
Oh.
The dessert to any story is the ending, how you tie it together. Functionally, with D&D, this is different. The ending to a campaign is not necessarily the ending of that adventure, right? The players can continue on. They can find another way.
Right.
But the ending of what you wanted to tell, I think, is sticking that landing is important. Game of Thrones is the easy example. It does not matter how strong your story is up until your ending. Not that it should overload you with fear, but if you botch the ending horribly...
I haven't watched Game of Thrones.
Don't. Because if you botch the ending horribly, believe me, people who are listening...
No, I've heard that the Game of Thrones got messed up pretty bad. So
it messes you up badly.
Yeah.
The reason I say that, I'm actually not going to ask you what ingredients you think make a good ending, because I think that's complicated, and I think that requires context. All I want to know is, what is your favorite ending to a story of all time? What do you think tied something together the best, you felt the most catharsis, and overall had you the most satisfied, positive or negative, with the story?
Okay, I'm going to get obscure again.
Go for it.
It is
the Dead Sea Scrolls.
It's...
He wrote them.
Lost him in his cave back in the day next to the painting of the Red Hand, you know what I mean? Sorry, I mean, that was just...
Nah, it's okay. 1930s movie, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. It's one of my 3 favorite movies.
Okay.
You guys have any idea?
No.
Never heard.
I think you might have seen parts of it, but it was black and white. You probably found it boring whenever I was watching it. A man who is essentially a Boy Scout, they call them the Boy Rangers, is through some unlikely circumstances nominated as the replacement senator for a senator that died. This is in the late 1930s. There's all sorts of debates going on in Congress about, the Depression and funding necessary to, alleviate all the suffering and poverty. 25% of the population was out of work at the time, and so he goes up there and doesn't really know what's going on. The machine that sent him there, the governor and the people behind the machine that sent him there, wanted him because of his naivety, and he wants to build a national boys camp. So lots of things happen, but basically he finds out that they've stuffed a lot of graft in this bill that's going to enrich the machine at the expense of the people. So, all this corruption and whatnot, and he decides to fight it, and they forge papers and whatnot and frame him as the person who stuffed the thing with graft, and make it look like he was trying to make all this money. So he tries to filibuster in front of the Senate to argue that, to the rest of the senators that he didn't do all of this. The other senator from a state who looks like a paragon of virtue but is in on it all keeps finding ways to attack him in such a noble way and whatnot, and keeps all the senators against him. He stands, and this is Jimmy Stewart playing the Mr. Smith, and he passes out from exhaustion after standing there for 24 hours, and the depths of his conviction and the level of his effort and whatnot convinces the other senator first to try to commit suicide, but and then to confess in front of the entire Senate, and so the screen ends on him being passed out, laid out on the Senate floor, while pandemonium happens in the Senate over all of this corruption now laid bare. And so all because of one man who would not give in. It's rather poignant today, I think.
Yeah.
So,
What makes that ending so special to you?
well, I mean, at the end of the day, it was one guy who just was too decent to go along with the crowd, and that has always been something that speaks to me. Two, in my personal life, there's a tenacity that I think a lot of us allow ourselves to forget. That tenacity. So is what gets you through life, not how smart you are or how capable you are or how much money you have. Your convictions and your willingness to never give up, in my opinion, is what makes you successful in life, or gives you the chance for success.
Sure.
And so all of this kind of got built up throughout the story. So the big ending has to be the big release. It has to tie everything up, and to the bitter end, you're sitting there thinking, this, there's no way out. There's no way out. And it gets resolved all at the very last seconds in a way you didn't really expect. And some people might say, well, it's a MacGuffin, somebody confessed. But for a 1930s movie, so if you watch it in that vein, where you're a little less jaded with plot twists and whatnot, and it just kind of hits you all at once. That is the most emotional ending, the strongest ending that I can think of, sitting here, on tap. So
Yeah, man. Kyle?
As soon as you said what was your favorite ending in any story whatsoever, my apologies. As soon as you said what was my favorite ending of any story, so many flashed in my head that I can't keep them straight. But I had one. I kind of lost it in that explanation. Somewhere
okay.
along. My bad.
No, I can cut in when you remember. Cut me off. How about that?
Pardon?
I said I can cut in if you want, and then come back to you.
That sounds fine.
Sure. The example that I immediately thought of, I like TV shows a lot because I like putting them on when I'm doing other stuff.
Right.
I'll just listen to one while I'm mowing the lawn. I guess that's kind of counterproductive. But I think a show that really executes the ending well is Narcos. Now, this is cheating a little bit because the ending is historical, right? So the events were somewhat written. But something that I think really leverages the importance of the ending is not just that you get the facts right. You know what I mean? It's one thing to have the facts straight. This is how the story will end piece. But they hit this very nice tonality, kind of that you mentioned, except almost the opposite. So a good example is Narcos is specifically set in Colombia, following the drug lords, kind of during their rise and not really fall, but fall from public eye, maybe. So it's Pablo Escobar first and then the Cali cartel. And technically, the show ends a couple different times, different seasons, different story arcs are over and then begin anew. But every time it does, the tone is very consistent. And I think that's a hard thing to do, right? The way the story tells itself actually kind of surprised me because you have a guy, Pablo Escobar, in the first few seasons, objectively not a good person. Like, ordered the deaths of thousands of people, personally committed some murders according to his son, things like that. Not a good person, right? But they tell him in this very nuanced way, not where they try to articulate to you that he's a good person, but that he is a person. And they let you see a lot of his humanity. And you don't really root for him, but there are times where you're like, that was cool. Or like, I probably would have done something somewhat similar. And you empathize just a little bit with him. So that in the end, when they deliver the final notes of his story, which this is not a spoiler, it's a historical fact, he was shot and killed by the police in this last shootout. When that happens, the show purposefully has like 3 or 4 seconds of silence where all the characters are looking around at each other like, what the
now?
heck just happened?
What now?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they don't know how to feel. It's only when the people who've been liberated from this terror start cheering and they start recognizing what they've done and what they've accomplished for their brothers and things like that, that kind of the reality sinks in. And I think little moments like that, paying attention and paying respect to the tone that you've built up this whole time, because it would have been very easy for the show to just, in the last 3 episodes, make him a diabolical monster. So that when he dies in the last episode of the 2nd season, you go, fantastic, awesome, and you're ready for the next. They actually spend the last 3 or 4 episodes of that season only humanizing him. I mean, all you see him do is speaking with his father, calling his family on the phone, missing them because he can't see them. So that when he does eventually die, though he deserved it, including in real life, you can't help but go, it sets the weight of the story on you. And that's the whole thing it tries to tell, is how terrible the drug trade is, how much it's affected people negatively, and how even in this, there is pain. Anyway, that's kind of a downer, but I think it's an excellent way to tell
it's
anything.
deep, and it's funny. Here I told this uplifting story in a terrible time, and here you are telling about a terrible person who did terrible things. I wonder if humanizing him didn't just make it all that much more real. It's like torturing others and committing evil is a slippery slope that we're all susceptible to. There are positive attributes of some of the worst leaders. I don't want to mention the obvious one because it just he gets too much press. But I could totally see everyone close to him going, wow, that was bad. And then I'm glad they pulled back to that shot of all the people who had been under his foot, feeling the relief and whatnot. And kind of brings you so there's a shock value there, right? It's like, hey, I was starting to get okay with this guy. And then it's like you're being forced to remember, hey, this was a person who was bringing a lot of pain and suffering to a lot of people. So that's an interesting ending to it's a very good ending.
I think it's expertly done.
Yeah.
So I have 2 that I'm going to bring up as some of my favorite endings to stories, because the way they ended is not the ending you would have expected or wanted from the story. It wasn't an abject failure. There wasn't an immediate, all of this was for nothing. There wasn't a catharsis. Halo Reach.
Just absolute cinema meme.
And The Last of Us.
Bangers.
So, I know you don't know what I'm talking about.
I've read about. Well, I played the first Halo, but I see that's not Halo Reach. And as for The Last of Us, I know a little bit of the story.
So, for anyone at home who doesn't know, and Halo Reach, I'm going to be honest with you, it's been a long time since I played, so I don't remember all of the story. But it ends by you helping people get off the world you're trying to defend, because it's in space. You're playing as a, for lack of a better term, armored super soldier.
A Spartan.
Well, you're
Kyle.
It's called a Spartan, but if I say Spartan, you're going to think Hellenistic guy.
Nah, in the USMC. No,
It's
no,
Master
no.
Chief, right?
Not
No,
Master
this
Chief.
is Noble 6.
So this is
Okay.
same universe, not the same character. Most Halos follow Master Chief. This one does not.
Okay.
Yeah, different Spartan.
Specifically, like he said, this is Noble 6, and at the end of the game, you get left behind along with one of your allies who is wounded, and he is manning a gun on a hill, and you are on a field where everything just took off. There is no way for you to get off world, and you are surrounded by enemies. There's no hope of escape. And literally, the taskbar at the top just says, survive. And you won't. There's no way to win. You will die eventually.
So the game is just seeing how long you can last, how many people you can take with.
On it, and it doesn't even really count, show you those metrics. It's not like an arcade game. It's
Right.
just you will die eventually, but it is in your nature as a human being to struggle for as long as you can, even when you don't think there's hope.
It's quite a metaphor, isn't it?
Sure is. And you also see the guy on the ridge who's manning a gun, who was injured, die because an alien with an energy sword impales him, and he sticks his knife in the alien's throat, and they fall off a cliff together.
Wow.
He drops the line, "I'm ready, how about you?" And you're sitting there going like, "I'm ready, how about you?" Like,
Wow.
"That's my guy, that's my coat."
And that's when it says survive and you die eventually. And
game.
in Last of Us, you play as this gruff mid-50s guy, somewhere 40s, 50s, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
Old enough to be gray-haired, gruff, and
So mid-50s is really old, is what you're saying.
gray-haired and gruff, not really old. There is a difference.
Okay, so mid-50s is gray-haired and gruff.
Yes. With a
Okay.
heavy masculine timbre.
Okay. How heavy?
Pretty heavy. In Joel's case, pretty heavy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And
Dude's a brawler.
he doesn't like anybody.
Okay.
He's suffered so much that he does not make any kind of relationships, except for the other main character of the game, Ellie, who he also does not like for about half the game, until eventually she sort of takes the role of his surrogate daughter after his had died, literally within the first chapter of the game. And there is a zombie apocalypse going on with mushrooms and spores, and she is immune.
Right.
And they go to this hospital where he's been trying to deliver her the whole game. And they say, we're going to be able to make a vaccine with her. All we have to do is crack her skull open and scrape the mushrooms off the inside of her head, killing her. And so he has to make the choice between, do I let them do this and possibly save humanity? Or do I not let them kill my surrogate daughter and possibly doom humanity? Which, I don't know if this was intended by the devs, but you cannot make vaccines for fungal infections. You have to make antifungals. There have been studies and tests to try and make a vaccine for fungal infections, but those are recent and none have, as far as I know, succeeded yet. So a bunch of idiots who were getting bitten by their own test monkeys in the zombie apocalypse using subpar tools and very little, if any, electricity would not be able to figure it out.
Tony Stark built this in a cave.
I'm not Tony Stark.
Okay.
But anyway, obviously, the player is not actually given a choice here. Joel chooses. He chooses, I'm saving Ellie.
Okay.
He actually, when he gets to the operating room after a very long battle throughout this hospital with the people he was up until that moment working for,
Right.
he gets in there, a surgeon picks up a scalpel and says, I'm not going to let you do this. Joe walks up, grabs the guy by the wrist that is holding the scalpel, and brutally cuts his throat open with it.
Wow.
Picks up the still unconscious Ellie, goes down an elevator where they see Ellie's somewhat mentor who gave the go-ahead to have Ellie killed for this supposed vaccine, where she tries to convince him to just let them have Ellie, and the moment she thinks she's got him, he pulls out a gun from under the girl he's carrying and shoots her in the head. And then he drives off with Ellie in the passenger seat, and she wakes up. She goes, did it happen? And he lies to her. He tells her, there's tons of other immune people, and they haven't been able to do anything yet. They can't make anything from immune people. He lies to her about what happened to protect her, after just slaughtering everyone that was in that hospital.
So is it the nuance that you appreciate the most about that?
I like that ending because it is true to the characters. Ellie is staking most of her value on being this immune person and had planned her in to be at this hospital, perhaps not that literally as would have been in the story, but still she was expecting it, and she is severely disappointed and depressed when she finds out it's not ending there. And Joel cares mostly for himself and not the rest of humanity. I mean, he's been killing all sorts of humans and people and refusing to make connections his whole life. He chooses to save her over the rest of humanity. And it is in keeping with their characters, and you don't expect it. You don't expect Ellie has to die. You expect, oh, they drew something out of her blood, and now we have a cure. And
So it's in keeping with the tone as well.
it's in keeping with the tone as well. It is these two stories, Reach and Last of Us, made their tone about the situations that they're setting up, and they end with characters making decisions or in situations that players would not expect. There is no immediate failure or a setup for a sequel, and there is no instant success. Everything has been validated. It sits somewhere in the middle. And where Last of Us eventually got a sequel, Reach will never have one.
To tie all this off, the one thing that seems to be a common frame in everything we talked about is that the ending shows the characters being true to themselves more than anything else, right?
Yep.
Agreed?
Yeah.
Maybe
Hopefully
that
that's informative.
Yeah, maybe that's a
Well,
key factor for a good story.
people, if you've listened up to this point or at all, thank you very much for joining us, sitting down by the fire and letting us take up an hour or so of your time.
Absolutely.
Do you guys have any closing thoughts before we go out?
Nope.
Awesome.
I think it got pretty deep there at the end, didn't it?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Hopefully that was informative and enlightening, and hopefully you picked something up about writing a good story along the way. You guys go ahead and get a long rest. We've got First Watch. Thanks.
good night.
Good night.